Indeed.
Indeed.
Indeed. The arsonist had webbed feet. Unique New York. Unique New York. I finna dinner dun dun. I finna dinner dun dun. Shit about a Honda. Shit about a Honda.
Welcome to Headboard Conversations. I'm your host, Just Patrice, and we have an amazing show for you today. However, before we get started, I'm gonna need you to take your pants off. Can't have that in my bed. You dig? That's cool because tonight, in my bed, it's the International Lover. Okay, really, that's not his name. But that's what I'm going to call him temporarily while we're having this discussion. It's cool. Great friend of mine. Awesome and amazing personality. And we're going to talk about, where he's come from, the things he's doing now, and, what his future is looking like. So if you would please join me in welcoming Mr. Nigel Wade.
Hello. How are you?
Excellent. We do have a live studio audience today, so if you hear any extra background noise, big laughing, some he full of shit happening in the background, it probably wasn't me. You get what I'm saying? Just a little bit of calling out, so we invite them to be comfortable and enjoy themselves, enjoy this conversation. Mm-hmm. So this first segment is specifically titled Coffee, Beans, and Poetry.
Hey.
You dig? It sounds like what it is, not. But we'll figure out what that is in just one moment. Okay.
Metaphors.
What's up, Nigel?
What's going on?
How you doing, huh?
I'm doing all right. Loving this setup. This is nice, yo.
You like it?
Yes, indeed.
It's a little different, nice and comfortable. And I figure, considering the things that we talk about, I want it to be, vulnerable and, and our big J.
Yeah, fam. I kind of like this whole cover sheet thing. It's not, it's very texture.
You like? Are you talking about this?
What is this? 58 thread count?
I have no idea.
This is,
I think it's funny because I like the little goofy rubber fingers across.
I do like that little texture in it.
So we'll talk a little bit about that in the second segment.
It is ribbed for her pleasure, but like the dudes
ribbed for her pleasure.
Nice.
Don't say.
Right on the elbows.
Unbelievable.
Like it.
So coffee, beans, and poetry.
Yeah.
So I chose that topic or chose that title for our first part of discussion is because I remember you being like a coffee connoisseur and like barista extraordinaire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So tell me, like, why are you so like into like coffee? Like
for real, the whole reason I went into like a service industry job in itself is because, I come from a pretty big family and, I'm like third in line, but I was the first son. So you got all this unwritten responsibility and it was all about just taking care of people.
Okay.
And since, I wasn't so much brought up to be very defensive, but just to be like very kind and humble in everything I did, just being a service type guy that was fitting. But since I wasn't drinking at the time, I wouldn't touch alcohol. So coffee seems like a good gig where you get tips. So it's like, hey, I get to take money and I always leave with cash in hand.
So like a faux bartender.
Yeah, sort of like that.
Okay.
Yeah, like a kitty bartender almost, because it's basically what it is.
Let's say faux. Don't say kitty.
I don't want to say kitty.
No.
Why not?
Don't say kitty.
Okay, don't want to say kitty. Okay, so we gonna say faux, not kitty. Oh, you playing at home. Anyway, so what ended up happening was, in order to get this gig, I had to be able to describe coffee, and I hated coffee. Coffee tastes like dirt, and it's always nasty. So then the guy who was training me, he was like, okay, well let's expand on this. Describe the level of nasty. I mean, is this dirt? Is this sucking on toes? Is this, licking someone's underarm? Describe the nasty. Yeah, literally. Okay. And so then I got into being able to define what levels of nasty I was tasting in each different bean from each different part of the continent.
Okay.
And then eventually I grew to like some of it. So then that was just my whole thing.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting because I never would have thought that you hated coffee.
Oh, fam.
And
yeah,
then, like,
starting
the whole
off.
design thing and the different beans and the smells and the fall in. Like, you really be like, on some bean shit.
Yeah, because overall, no, you're being shit.
I'm just saying.
But no, because it really just started off just, it just tasted so nasty, and I was all like against the popular swag of just going to a cafe and having a coffee and bagel. It just seemed so damn pretentious to me. And then when I actually had to try it out so I could describe it to people, because I couldn't just say, yeah, that one's nasty. That was less nasty than this one, but that was nasty too. I had to be able to use the right vocabulary. So instead of saying that one tastes like dirt, you say it has very nice earth tones and a hint of grass or almost hay, a little bit of that on the back end of the palate, and just describing things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so it kind of just grew on me.
So by typical labeling nature, people associate poetry and coffee houses.
Right.
And reading and literature and coffee houses.
Right.
And, learning over the years that people who are typically involved in poetry then transition into spoken word or into becoming authors or however you want to, all these different avenues or arms, you know what I'm saying, into this literary community.
Right.
How does it all boil back down to, and from your perspective, coffee houses? Is that just a terrible stigma or?
Basically what it comes down to is this, as I reach for a beer.
Please have that.
Yes. Basically it came down to this. If you think back to we'll just say early European history. Mm-hmm. We have the whole the medieval times, knights, kings, what have you. So basically the whole sipping around, drinking coffee or drinking tea, non-alcoholic beverages, it gave people a chance to think. And since, caffeine gives you that awoke feeling, and then you're able to have energy to think deeply, you just have this energy. And if you're sitting talking around, well, I don't think this is right. I don't think, paying taxes to the king as much as we're doing, I don't think that's fair. And you know what I don't think is fair? That, they just get born into this royalty. I mean, if God is really with them, why is there any suffering at all? And people started to open up their minds.
Okay.
This led to possibly the overthrow of a kingdom or a king or the royals or what have you. So they closed down coffee houses or tea houses and started opening up more bars, because you're less likely to have a constructive intellectual conversation with alcohol as I take a sip.
Oh, so that's what they say. So you want to have less constructive. Okay.
Yes. So then with the opening of more coffee houses and the popularity of Starbucks and just the Seattle being a social hub, not only in alternative music, but also in the coffee service industry too, it just gave people almost that second, or this might be drawing a far reach, but it's more.
We did say in your opinion. So.
In my opinion, it was like the second coming of the hippie era.
Okay.
Where people just had free thought and started to question everything. Why is this like this? It should be like this. Or maybe if we approach it from this way, it'll have a better outcome.
While they're enjoying coffee.
Because now they're not so much dumbing down their nerves or their receptors. Everyone's awake and everyone's just letting their mind go. So you're able to think more and just be excited, or, coffee jitters, whatever you call it.
Coffee jitters,
yeah.
Definitely.
So then, naturally, the writers need that fuel to stay awake so they can write longer. Or that's the characteristic that's associated with this liquid.
Okay.
And likewise, writers and poets thought that, well, maybe I'll be able to get this metaphor down, or what am I trying to say here, and beat that writer's block by some over sensing feeling of just being more productive. I have caffeine in my system. That sense of being productive.
That's a whole interesting take on that. I think that people sometimes get lost in these grandiose ideas of the simplest, you know what I'm saying? Simplest composite, you know what I mean? We needed the energy to keep our minds going. Right. You know what I'm saying? We needed to be able to stay woke, so we decided to, you know what I'm saying? Hey, the caffeine was doing this, so we did it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's not the go-to, because I hate to front they lies, but the poets I know get lit. But that's another story. I'm just saying, they don't all sit around sipping. They drink coffee now.
No.
And some of them drink tea, but they turns it up. Seriously.
And on that note, I think that's the more of that helps them kind of tap into that, past that filter, because there's a lot of poets. Every poet will have that one in their roster where it's like, if I read this poem, man, people gonna get mad, or like this might get me kicked out the community, or they're not gonna invite me back for this feature. So every poet has that one poem that don't exactly line up with that liberal side of their expression, or their I support this cause or these groups. Everyone's got that warning. I went to Chicago one time. This cat went up to the Blue Mile. Oh no, Blue Mile, Green Mill.
The Green Mill, Blue Mile.
It's the liquor.
You gonna blame that beer?
Yeah, I am. I'm gonna take another sip too. So at the Green Mill,
6 sips, and you done called it the Blue Mile.
This cat got up on stage in a room full of poets and tried to say that jazz music was black people fucking up classical music. The whole room fell silent, and then he tried to explain it.
It didn't go well.
Mark Smith got up on stage like, I think that's enough out of you. Yeah, that's what we needed. Somebody to tell us how jazz traveled up the Mississippi to Chicago so that black people could classical music. It's like, yeah, fucking up classical music.
Did he make it out safely?
He made it out safely, and it also helped our team in the little mini slam we had afterwards, because we made a little tweak in our poem. Gave right at dude. 10. He sat at the back of the bar that whole night. I give him props for not leaving, but then again, where was he gonna go? He was afraid to go outside, possibly.
Probably. That was...
Anyway,
yeah,
shout out to the Green Mill and Mark Smith. Good times, fam.
So do you remember what tapped you into poetry? Like, why did you say, you know what, I'm going to do it?
Well, on the corny end of that, started in high school to get over a broken heart. That's all it was. It's like, you know, Nigel wasn't looked at as being a sexy man or a deviant, you know. He was just that quiet boy that nobody could really talk to. So what I ended up doing was I just had to So basically what happened was I kept getting past boy. I was automatically put in a friend zone so many times. It's like Nigel was good enough to have as a friend, but never to have as a boyfriend, never to have. And into my 20s, it was never good enough to have as a lover, never good enough to have as a boyfriend or a husband. So then it got to a point where I'm just going to keep writing this down. There are so many women immortalized in my poems that are never mentioned by name, with the exception of maybe 2.
Really?
Yeah. And so
look what y'all did. Thank you.
I'm saying, fam.
Thank you. Look
but
at
so
you
know, so even from the tragedy of that, you know, cruel women make good poets. Somebody put that on a t-shirt. Give me that 30%.
Cruel women make good poets.
Ouch.
Ouch. So when I remember like having you come to the set and like, yeah. Look, that was, what is that, man? What's that?
She's like, I made a couple of poets.
And she done took a sip.
It's like, I got some Grand Slam champions up under my belt. No, I'm joking.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking, as far as your writing goes, I remember like when you first came onto the poetry scene, you know what I mean? And a lot of your pieces were, you know what I'm saying, extremely literary based and soft.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just smoothly delivered. You know what I mean? And then one day you showed up and then fucking showed up like this big, I don't know what happened. Like what made you change your delivery?
What happened is that I was getting used to seeing how black men were being the target of a lot of pieces, and then I saw a lot of black men and how they approach the mic.
Okay.
And not that I use that as I'm going to be completely against the grain, but it just shifted my point of view about what it means to actually get up to the mic.
Okay.
Because for the real, I was just sharing what I wrote. And, you know, it's like, oh yeah, it's like little funny thoughts I had. But then when I actually had a purpose to write something, like, I want y'all to hear me with this one. And just run at it. It was just... It wasn't like directed toward anybody. The subject matter was still about me, but it was just the way I performed. It's like, just let it go, fam. I'm not here to be theatrical. I'm not here to be anybody's like he's the reason I wrote this poem. But it's like it just changed something in me. Just the way that people would express themselves with a target focus. Like I wrote this piece specifically, like, you could tell people who wrote a poem because they had one good line and they just wrapped a whole poem around that one line.
Okay.
And so then it was like, let me try that. Let me see what that one line is. And so I tried it, and it came off as me just being this brand new dude. And it was like, so it does work in this writing fashion. So it didn't change my entire style of writing, but just looking at it from that point, like, that is a good line. Now, how can you explain it different? You heard it this way. How can you explain it in your own words? Okay, now, what other experiences do you have that lined up? And then that just became a writing style.
What's your favorite poem?
My favorite poem of all time that I ever wrote? My haiku that I wrote, the book of haikus I wrote for my friend when he got married.
Okay.
The best one was the haiku about, if marriage is your only goal, then your wedding is your funeral. That is my favorite. Thank you. I need to. Hey, fam. Hey, fam. Because I hear it, and a lot of cats. And this is the crazy part.
Can you say it again one more time?
Okay. If marriage is your only goal, then your wedding is your funeral. Okay. Once you get married, you ain't got nothing else to accomplish. You might as well die off. And so many people approach like marriage like that. I talked to my guy. He was marrying a woman he shouldn't have. And then he straight up asked me to be his best man. It's like, fam, I've been trying to talk to you for a full year. You won't talk to me. You won't return phone calls, text message, email. So I gave up. His sister came to me on the low. Was like, hey, I ain't seen you in a while. Let's get dinner. It's like, all right, sure. And at dinner, I'm going to need you to talk to him because he's not talking to family. Like, no. So then I wrote him the poem and gave it to him. I was like, fam, there. If you ain't going to listen to me, you ain't going to listen, read something. So, and the ironic part about that, other places in the world where marriage is just that focus, and it's still playing that hierarchy of women have to be married by 25, their sole purpose is to have children and stay at home, stuff like that, they still live by that motto. And so it's like, if that's your only goal, then what is it afterwards? And then they find that emptiness, that my husband's working later, or my husband's not coming home right after work, and then they have that emptiness, and they're trying, like, then your whole definition of who you are, it changes. It's like people who live with celibacy. It's like, I respect someone who has that honor, that code of honor where it's like, I want to remain a virgin until I'm married. Even now, I still respect that. But when you lose your virginity to your spouse, then what? Are you going to have this backlash of the one thing that made you unique and special is now gone? So then what do you have? Make sure you're not putting so much on that one title, that one thing, marriage, graduation, promotion, that you forget that after that, your life is still going to go. The credits don't roll after that. It's like your life keeps going. And then you get that goal that you've been struggling and sacrificing so long for, and it's not what you thought it was, then what? Are you going to rage against God and the universe? The universe owes you something because everyone told you this was so good and so kept for you that you had to fight and sacrifice, and you did all that. You played by the book and you got nada at the end. It's a bitter pill to swallow.
You have such a, what's the word? And I remember we used to have these conversations, and there was so much, and I don't want to say bitterness. Like, you used to be mad.
No, you can say bitter.
You see,
yeah, fam.
I don't want to say BNS. You know what I'm saying? Which is the bitter nigga signal. But you used to be grumpy as shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, about, was it a relationship or something that didn't go well? I don't know. I didn't know what it was. Like, where did all that come from? And how did you get? Like, how many heartbreaks did you have?
Let me put it to you like this.
You was mad a lot.
I was mad a lot. Basically, it was kind of interesting how the timelines line up. Okay. Because through high school, I was like bullied and picked on like relentlessly. Okay. And then right around senior years when cats backed off me. Okay. By then, it was already too late. I had them scars in me, and I really couldn't talk to anybody because, like, my father at home, he was very tough lovish. He's like, ain't nobody got time for you crying, feeling sorry for yourself. You're going to get up at 5 a.m., you're going to put that work in, and, you know, my mother can console me only so much. So don't baby him too much. He needs to learn that type of stuff. So then the pen is all I had. You know what I mean? So then as it got out of high school, you know, I still had that honor code, that respect in me. I still treated everybody, you know, I didn't have that chip on my shoulder or those defenses up where it's like, you got to prove like you the baddest all the time. Like that alpha, that bull. It's like, that wasn't me. It's like, that takes too much energy to keep that front up 100% of the time, no matter who you are. So then when it came to relationships, it was always women talking to me who were either dating someone, but it wasn't serious, dating someone for a long period of time, dating someone for an extended period of time and things are unsure. And at that point in time, people who are women who were engaged, but they didn't set a date for the wedding. And so they would always talk to Nigel at work, talk to Nigel at the park, talk to Nigel because they went to high school with him, because they have problems or they want to hear things. And I would talk to them.
So you was a habitual side dude?
For the most part, yeah. And I wasn't having sex with nobody. I wasn't kissing nobody.
I know you wasn't, because you was saving yourself.
Yeah, I was saving myself still at that age. And so what it was is, you get this dude who's taking all the psychological things that you can't go to your man with. He's good enough to talk to, good enough to fantasize about, but when it comes to stopping that and starting something new, well, we got history. Well, you know, we're engaged. I know our families know each other real well. Well, I'm going to give him another chance. He seems like he's changing. And, like, you know, he's starting a new, like, he quit his job, but somebody has to be there for him. I have to take care of him. That shit. Nigel was always good enough to be there for that Band-Aid. But once that cut healed, take that Band-Aid off. It's like, you deserve someone. And so then I went into a villain phase. I got really selfish. I got really in my chest about everything. I didn't trust nobody. That's where that anger and shit came from.
So were you like the hump around guy once you got to that stage?
No, that's the crazy part about it. I was like, for real, I had it in my mind, like, they know what it is. Like, when they come to Nigel, I already know what it's about. I'm a young, single black man poet. I already know what it's about, all this attention. I didn't have the stomach to pull the trigger. I did not have the stomach in me to find somebody, sleep with them, and run. I just didn't have it on me. So it's like, I would get to these moments where it'd be a lot of flirting. There would be, like, you know, kissing to a certain extent, a little foreplay, but I could never be like, yo, I think we just slow this up, because this ain't gonna turn out right. So let me just go about my business. And like you, I remember you telling me straight up, and like, I was like, I don't have sex. I just do other things. And you're like, Nigel, that's probably pissing more women off than looking chivalrous. And sure enough, I had a woman straight up and down. I'll never forget this. She made it into a poem. She made it into a poem. She invited me over to see the sunrise. And I thought that was the most coolest shit in the world. So it's like a quarter to 4.
Yeah.
So I show up at her apartment. She opens the door in this silk robe with panties and a bra on that match, and it looked wonderful. Like, she looked amazing, fam. So then we went to her bedroom. We went to her bedroom where she had this beautiful window, and we just sat there, and I'm just holding her. And the sun came up, and I'm like, yo, this is really nice. Started kissing. Kissing started turning to other things, and she's like, she stated it plain. I was like, I want you inside me. And I was like, I can't do that. And it went so downhill so fast. She was like, what do you mean you I was like, you know I'm celibate. You know I'm celibate. You know I don't have sex. So then she's like, are you serious right now? And it started getting loud. I'm like, wait, you got neighbors. Hold on, fam. It's like, she straight up, like, pushed me aside, went to the other side of the bed, kind of scooted, and was like, my pussy too good for you anyway. And I was like, damn! I was like, well, let me get my Snickers. And I grabbed my Snickers, went outside, the sun is blazing. I felt proud of myself, like, I'm going to treat myself to breakfast. Took myself out to breakfast and had a day, fam. She made it into a poem, and she was salty ever since.
She's still mad?
I don't know if she's still mad. I know she's seen me a few times, and it's very cordial. It's very simple. Hey, how you doing? That's it. because
She's still mad.
Right.
She's
It's
still
more
mad.
about her friends and people we know we are in the same circle. So it's like people she sees that know me. It's like, okay, well, let me go up and say hello because I don't want to be rude. Now, I'll straight up and down, I'll give her this benefit. She might not be mad anymore. No, straight up. She might not be mad. I'm just saying.
She's still mad.
Okay, I'm saying though, I would like to give her the benefit of the doubt that she's not mad. She's moved on from that shit. But we're not in a cool space outside of that.
We not in a cool space.
So,
She's still mad. You know what? That is a perfect segue to our next segment.
hey.
And I'm going to take this quick. She's still mad, bro. I just wanted to say that. She thought it was over.
Well, for the record, she don't have to be mad no more. So if she came to me and be like, "Look, you owe me," I'd probably be like, you know,
You
what?
just knock it down. Look at that.
I would take that on the street. I don't know. Well, men can't do that, obviously. Hashtag a few things. But a few things. But
Well,
I think since the pendulum is swinging on that upside, if you like, yo, you owe me, I would take it in consideration. I would deliberate on it and be like, well, you probably right.
okay, so hold that thought.
All right.
We're going to take a quick break and come right back to this particular You Owe Me.
You owe you.
In segment 2 of Nigel Wade, Headboard Conversations. Y'all sit tight. We'll be back shortly.
Hey.